people infected with HIV could expect to live for years before developing AIDS illnesses. So for them, fears of AZT's long-term dangers were important. They might take the drug for years. And some patients in the early trials of AZT found its side effects appalling.
I think that AIDS drugs are not like what we're accustomed to thinking of medicine. We think of antibiotics. AIDS drugs are chemotherapy. Nasty, nasty stuff. It really hurts your constitution. It got your bone marrow, caused the anemia.
I also received two transfusions due to the AZT. I have AZT-related anemia to this day, even though I'm on a low dose of AZT at this time.
What did you feel?
As if I had been poisoned. Very, very seasick. It wasn't a throwing up kind of nausea. It was a seasickness that was in my bones, and headaches, inability to concentrate or respond.
How long did you stay on AZT?
I was on it, I think, just about exactly 18 months.
And what happened when you stopped?
I felt great. I felt so much better. That's when I stopped, because I was going on vacation. For the American government's scientific advisor on AZT, the drug's long-term toxic effects were of major concern.
If the efficacy of the drug wanes or lessens over time, and there are toxicities that aren't apparent at the beginning, more subtle toxicities that accumulate over time, there may come a point where there's more, the drug does less good than it does damage.
And what did you know about those long-term effects at the moment the drug was approved?
We really didn't know anything.
Dr. Cooper has told Panorama that she wanted a long-term study of the drug among patients with no symptoms. But there was no long-term study. The company and a team of researchers set up a trial notionally to last 3 years, but designed so that it might stop early if it found even a modest short-term benefit. Did you think that that was a good thing to do or a bad thing to do?
I thought that it was not a good thing to do.
So why did it happen?
Because other people disagreed with me.
We surmised if it delayed the onset of symptoms by, say, a year, eventually it would delay their death by approximately that same period, say a year.
That was what you hoped and assumed?
That's what we believed overall in looking at all the data we had.
And as Dr. Barry anticipated, this trial, codenamed 019, was stopped early after studying patients for just over a year. 8 in 100 on placebo had developed the first symptoms of AIDS. But among those taking AZT, only 4 in 100 had these symptoms. The US government, which had sponsored the trial, acted as cheerleader.
This finding underlines anew the need for people to voluntarily undergo HIV testing and counseling. We are indeed entering the period when AIDS may become a treatable disease.
Appointment number 6, please.
But while taking AZT early was found to delay the onset of some AIDS symptoms, it was still not known if it could ultimately prolong life. The study stopped too soon to tell.
It's tempting to stop trials early. There's no question, certainly on the part of manufacturers. We know that they want their trials to be seen as successful, positive trials. And investigators and sponsors, whether they're pharmaceutical companies or, in many cases, the government, want that as well. It's good publicity. And, of course, it's good business for the pharmaceutical companies.
I don't think taking cynical views really is going to progress medical practice. What we were looking at is what is the best way to provide the most benefit to the most patients for the longest period of time. That's how we acted. I'm proud of it. I think we did it ethically. I think we did it right. And I think hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of patients have benefited because of that approach.
And so has your company.
It's no longer my company.
So's the company you then worked for.
Yes, the company did, but we had many other drugs. I mean, this was not our most prominent drug.
But AZT was Wellcome's second biggest selling drug. After the publicity for trial 019, shares boomed as a potential global market seemed within reach, up to an estimated 10 million people living with HIV. The company began to promote early use of AZT. One of its handouts said this could bring tremendous benefits and have dramatic effects.
I interpreted that drama and tremendousness in a different way and saw that we were preventing 4 out of every 100 people from progressing, and I didn't feel that was really worth the potential toxicities and costs.
So what did you make of those adjectives?
Well, I thought they might have been slightly inflated.
But how did Wellcome present AZT's already known side effects? A company handout to patients said that the most common side effect, nausea, affected only a very small minority. But Wellcome's technical manual showed that in study 019, this very small minority was in fact 22 or 27%, depending on dose. We wanted to ask Wellcome's then chief executive, John Robb, to answer these doubts about the company's promotion of AZT. He declined to be interviewed for this program. As sales of AZT grew in the early 90s, so did public protests by AIDS activists fearing the drug had hidden dangers. The American trials of AZT left unresolved its long-term risks and benefits. But a study designed to run for many years was already underway. But not in the United States. From its base in Oxford, a team of British and French doctors had set up a prolonged trial codenamed Concorde in 1988. The British side came from the specialist AIDS team of the Medical Research Council. For the first time, they tell Panorama the story of their clash with the company over the trial. They are the team's chairman, Professor David Worrell, scientific secretary, Dr. Tim Peto, and the principal investigator of the Concorde trial, Professor Ian Weller. In 1989, they had to assess the value of the highly publicized results of trial 019 in America, and what they found left them unconvinced.
What we were looking at was a very small effect in terms of delay of progression of disease produced by AZT, very small. And the study, the average follow-up or length of treatment was only just over a year. And we know that 50% of people remain well for 10 years. So just over a year is rather a short time in the life of somebody who's well with HIV. So the real question for me was, does this degree of benefit persist?
Like most studies, the Concorde trial depended on the company for free supplies of the drug. In return, 2 Wellcome scientists joined the Concorde team. But there was a basic difference over what should count as proof of the drug's effectiveness. The Medical Research Council wanted to concentrate on prolonging life or health.
It was important, therefore, to at least run a trial for several years to get a handle on whether it actually did any good in the long term in people that were well.
The company, in line with some other experts, also wanted to rely on a more immediate measure: AZT's effect on patients' blood, in particular their number of CD4 blood cells, thought vital to the strength of the immune system. The study's British chairman rejected this, believing AZT might artificially raise this blood count without bringing any real health benefit.
We were worried that the CD4 count might be a cosmetic measure.
Why then would the company want to include a CD4 count?
Well, the CD4 count had the great advantage that the changes were seen early on, Clearly, the longer the study, the more expensive, the more delayed the result.